Hi everybody, it's Eric Pappenfus. It's Friday, so it must be a buy day, and today Kathy and I are in beautiful Utica, New York. Now, we promised you this video last week when we were visiting the Berry Hill bookshop, and weren't those some amazing books that we got?
Yes.
Yeah. You saw behind me there at the entrance the gates to Forest Hill Cemetery. It's a classic American rural cemetery. It was founded in 1850 here in Utica. It has those great Gothic revival gates. But what the cemetery is most known for, we're going to go visit some graves in just a minute. What it's most known for is it was the original relocation place for the great Oneida stone. And if you look behind me here, you'll see a replica of that stone, because the stone, original stone, was returned to the Oneida Nation. Now, we're here in the heart of what once was the great Iroquois Confederacy. There were many nations and many tribes. The Oneida was the one tribe that sided with the United States during the American Revolution. You'd think that would have gotten them some respect in the early republic, but it didn't really. They stood with us in the Revolution, but Congress in the state of New York, pretty much right after the Revolution, began seizing and taking their lands and eventually relocated most of the nation. Oneida got its name from the standing stone. They made all their decisions as a council around the original rocks that were left here by the glaciers many millennia ago. And that is an example of one of the stones, and it sort of was the genesis for the founding of this cemetery. They wanted a place where they could put the stone on display to honor the Native American history of the region. So we're going to go explore the cemetery now, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, well, Kathy, it's a hot day today, but we made it to the summit of the Forest Hill Cemetery. I would say it is both a forest and a hill, this cemetery. Right. If you pan around, I think you can show people that we are really at the highest possible elevation. And if we were to go down the hill, there's some stunning views, the valley below. As you look at all the gravestones, you see a lot of gravestones that are in the sort of romantic tradition of the 19th century. There's lots of Egyptian revival. We've seen several pyramids and sarcophagi and lots of obelisks. But there are also more romantic stones. Can you see, if you come a little closer here and you look around the corner there by the tree, Kathy, you'll see a stump, a natural stump for a woman named Julia. And that's a beautiful romantic motif for a life sort of cut short, and an appropriate cemetery stone for here in Forest Hill. But we came all the way up here because we wanted to revisit one of our by-day favorites.
Okay.
And that was Dr. John Cochran, who only recently I discovered was actually buried here in Utica. Do you remember Dr. John Cochran? If you're a by-day enthusiast, you might, but he was the first Surgeon General of the American Army, and he served right under Washington in the Revolutionary War. He wasn't from Utica, but his son later settled in Utica. And when they founded this cemetery in 1850, part of the reason that they did rural cemeteries was because the downtown cemeteries were pretty much full, and there was a desire to redevelop a lot of downtown. So you have a lot of cemeteries that are reinterred from downtowns to the suburbs, basically in Royal Cemetery. And that's what happened here. Cochran was reinterred and was given a new burial here. And this is very unusual. This is a Revolutionary War mound. It sort of looks like an ancient burial mound of some sort. There's several other graves and markers. You can see them adorned with flags. And although the cemetery was founded in 1850, the Revolutionary War veterans gave the cemetery a bit of a cachet and a reason for people to come and visit. Not only could you see the Oneida stone at the entrance, but maybe you'd climb all the way to the top of the hill like we did to visit the Cochran plot. If you don't remember Cochran from By Day, we're going to get to it.
Excellent.
Because it was one of my favorite books that we've done. We've got a couple that we're going to do here in the cemetery. But Mr. Cochran, as the Surgeon General, was a friend of David Ramsay. And you may recall we did a by day on David Ramsay's history of the Revolution in South Carolina. And this was the first ever book that was copywritten in the United States in the first ever history of the United States. And what's great about the book it was owned by Cochran, and we even surmised, I've got to get into it a little bit to get to the page that is stamped by him, but we even surmised that it was in fact a presentation copy from Ramsay to Cochran. There is Cochran's stamp for the history of the American Revolution.
So lovely.
And then on the title page, if you remember, somebody cut out who it was presented to, but we think. So the first ever history of the United States and the American Revolution presented to Cochran, an important person. Cochran on the battlefield was famous for saving a very important person's life. Do you know who that was?
No.
It was the General Lafayette. At the Battle of Brandywine, back in Pennsylvania, Lafayette was shot in the leg. He was bleeding profusely. None of the doctors could help him. He was, I think, going to die. Washington sent for Cochran, said, "Treat Lafayette like you would my son." And Cochran got to Lafayette, dragged him off the battlefield, patched up his leg, and he survived.
Wow.
And what a great thing that was. So Dr. John Cochran, the surprising resident of Utica's oldest and most important cemetery. We're going to go to another spot now, and then we're going to talk about a book that was actually published right here in Utica. Okay, Kathy, well, I wanted to show you a really interesting book that was published in Utica, and we're here at the Pomeroy Family Monument because we've got a beautiful angel who can serve as a muse. If you look at the cover of this book, you'll see that you have two young women on it, and it's called The Young Ladies' Astronomy. And this is really an incredible book. It's an incredibly rare book. Just discovered it this past week. If you come in and look at the title page, you will see that what it is a history of astronomy, or a practical guide to how to teach astronomy, done by M.R. Bartlett, but it's specifically for how to teach astronomy to women, which is extremely unusual. And look how early it is. It's from 1825, and look who published it right here in Utica. Printed for the author, Mr. Bartlett, who's buried here, by Caldwell and Wilson. Pretty amazing. Also, I like the fact that this book has an inscription by a young woman, Miss Eliza, very common name. You see again and again in these cemeteries, Eliza Ann Robinson's. She used this book to study astronomy in Petersburg, Virginia. I don't know of any other books on astronomy, especially from that period, that were geared towards women. It shows a very sort of progressive attitude towards learning in the early American Republic, which I think is exciting. If you zoom in on this map, though, this is what most interests me. This is the universe as understood in 1825. And if you look at the map, you're going to first notice there's some planets there that we don't consider planets today, right? Ceres, Pallas, Vesta, no longer planets. And the universe only goes as far out as Uranus, because that's as far out as we knew. And those moons are the moons that were discovered by Herschel. So a pretty fascinating book. My son pointed out he particularly liked this part of it, which was that you can see how the sun appears from various planets, from Mercury, from Venus, and from the Earth. There's also other graphs and charts and calculations, and the whole book is presented in the Socratic method with sort of rules, examples, and then questions and answers. So what are the signs' names of the 3 winter months? The winter signs are da, 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 da. A fascinating book, amazing book, and a book published right here in Utica, New York. Okay, we're here at our final stop at Forest Hill Cemetery. We're at a beautiful, beautiful monument built for a family, and I wanted to start with the globe that was on top. And globes and celestial orbs and objects are very common in Victorian cemeteries. And in their honor, I brought another book that came in with the textbook on how to teach astronomy. And this one's a little bit later, a little more Victorian, but one that would have been used for probably in the schooling of most of the residents that are buried here. And this is this wonderful book that just came in called the Thatcher's Guide to Illustration, a manual for Holbrook School apparatus. And Holbrook was the first designer of globes and other methods of teaching about the universe in the public schools here in New York State and elsewhere, really throughout the whole country. We saw from that early astronomy textbook how you could learn about the world, but nothing really was better for teaching purposes than globes. And I like this book because it is the guide to the types of globes that were purchased and used. This is a tellurian, which was used in schools here in New York State. And showed the motions of the plane. Can you imagine that? Not many of the original fixtures have survived, but this book survives. This is an orrery, a more famous and known model of the solar system that was used. And this one here is a celestial sphere. And the whole book is filled with globes and spheres. And as we wrap up our time here in Forest Hills and you pan out and maybe you circle again and show the monuments, you see that these resting places are really great places for contemplation, for thinking about the past, and I always recommend bringing a book or two to help you learn. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll watch next Friday and every Friday at noon for more adventures in the world of books.